Well, spring is here and the weather is getting so nice outside, it might even inspire you to start your garden cleanup. But maybe we shouldn't spring into action just yet. Here with the dirt is the U of I Extension's horticulture educator, Ryan Pancaw. Welcome to Zoom, Ryan.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, and excited to talk about garden cleanup and all the stuff we do in spring. It's the weather's warming and folks are dying to get out and do all this kind of stuff. So
Oh, definitely.
yeah, these last few weeks have really started the gardening season going. So what I want to talk about today is just that it's important to think about insects when we do this garden cleanup every year. So there's good insects we should look out for, and there's bad insects that we want to get rid of. So from the good side of insects, all our native insects, all of our pollinators are very important for native ecosystems. 85% of plants globally are pollinated by pollinating insects. 35% of global food production is related to pollinators, are things that are pollinated by pollinating insects. So we can say 1 out of every 3 bites of food we take are pollinated by an insect. So we've seen global declines in insect populations in pretty dramatic fashion in recent years. So it's important we think about these little bugs that are out there as we start to do our spring garden cleanup.
And so when we are thinking about that, it might be too soon to start doing the cleanup that you want to be doing because that might affect those little pollinators.
Yeah, so there's a lot of insects that overwinter in dead stems of plants that are standing, in leaves on the ground, and dead sticks and things that are on the ground. So if we have a really nice and tidy cleanup process going on right now, a lot of those overwintering insects we inadvertently just toss out or recycle or burn if we burn leaves. So the recommendation is to hold off on a lot of this if you can until our nighttime temperatures are above about 50 degrees pretty consistently, because that's the point at which all these insects will hatch and they'll start to emerge and they'll move away from these overwintering locations. And that usually happens here about the same time that we'd want to put tomato plants out. So that's about early to mid-May, as you see on the slide there. That's when we get those temperatures that are warm enough that you can safely kind of clean up all those dead stems. But I have a lot of folks still wanting to clean up areas that are right by their front door or those really highly visible spots. And so we've tried to kind of come up with some recommendations that you can do a little bit of cleanup now and do the rest later after things kind of warm up in May. So one of those recommendations is just to leave some areas that are a little out of the way that you don't clean up. It's pretty
And
easy to do.
and that might be
Um,
hard for people, like you mentioned, if they're in those highly visible areas, for them not to get out when it's so nice out. Can we talk about mulching as well? Because you encourage people, don't put down any new mulch just yet either.
Yeah, and that is something that a lot of us do right now is add new mulch, which a ton of our native bee populations are ground nesting bees. And when we cover the ground with an additional 2 to 4 inches of mulch, that can kill those insects before they ever emerge or they don't have a chance to come out. So if we can delay mulching as well, if we can leave some areas of bare dirt in our garden throughout the season, that can help with their life cycles.
Okay,
So
you
that's
also mentioned here to allow early spring flowers to bloom, as that's a great resource for those pollinators. But you consider a dandelion to be a spring flower?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. All those things that bloom in our lawn. If you drive by my house in the early springtime, you're not going to see it mowed until well after a lot of other things are blooming. And so I let the violets, I let the dandelions, and other clover flowers or some of those really early spring flowers that come out. I give those a chance to bloom, and then once other stuff starts to come in that provides nectar and pollen for pollinators, I go ahead and mow my yard
Yeah.
and take care of those.
Okay,
So
we're about out of time, but really quickly, if somebody
sure.
wants to maybe add some new plants this spring to their gardens or flower beds that are gonna encourage those pollinators to visit them, which native plants do you recommend?
Oh, sure. That's kind of all of our native prairie plants are the ones that I recommend the most. So we've got grasses like big blue stem and Indian grass and switchgrass, little blue stem that are really pretty grasses that you can add. And then there's just a ton of flowering plants, the forbs that we see in our native prairie ecosystem. So those are the plants we recommend adding that are the best in supporting our native pollinating insects and other insect life.
Okay, great tips for those people out there who are ready to start gardening and getting busy this spring. And we'll have all of those tips from Ryan on our website, ciliving.tv. Ryan, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks so much.